Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how I built a Harry Potter book nook. This is what it looks like finished, and here's what it looked like when it showed up. And here I have gone ahead and washed it with a gray paint to start, and here we go. These are the directions, very tiny to read, but it shows you all the pieces that go with each wall. So I would put them all together with each wall before you start, so you know what goes together. So let's begin. So as I said, I already kind of washed the large inside walls with a gray paint, and now I'm going to go in and just texture a little bit. And when I say texture, I just mean painting some of the bricks slightly different tones. You do not have to do this if you don't want to. I was just trying to show a bit more detail. So this will take a lot more time to do, and if you're interested in having something with a finished look like the image at the very beginning of this video, then this is how I did it. So just bit by bit, just do a few clusters darker, and then I'll fast forward as we go, because I'm not going to make you watch the whole thing, but just do a few bricks random here and there, just to give it a bit more dimension. All right, so I'll speed it up a little wee bit, and I'll show you a little bit of what I'm saying. Once it's all together and finished, you'll see how it looks, but it kind of looks weird when you first start going. And don't worry, it's just paint. You can go over it if you make a mistake. And I used acrylic paint. I also have acrylic markers, which will appear every now and then in the video, just to help color smaller lines and work with small spaces. I liked the color variety of the acrylic paint markers. So just finish up the sides. And that's kind of how it looks. All right. So now I'm just going to start doing some painting on the bottom part of this door, and that is what that section is. The two bigger spaces beside are where the curved windows go. So I'll speed this up again. And again, you can use whatever color you want. If you want to do beige brick, red brick, whatever you feel like. I just went with gray. And I'm using black and gold tones as well throughout. You can be creative and make it as colorful as you want, or as neutral as you want. There is the acrylic markers I was mentioning. So I'm highlighting some of the spaces with purple, just to give it a bit of a punch. And again, that's the bottom part of the door, and you'll see it all come together shortly. Speed it up a little. And yes, you'll see I have different tools throughout this. I do have a little blade I use. It is quite dull, so I'm not going to cut myself with it, but I do like to use it for scraping things. I also find a toothpick is really good, like those thicker round toothpicks, not the flatter ones. They're really good for just cleaning glue in spots. So those are always handy to have available. Now this is where we're going to start working on the curved windows. Very tiny little delicate pieces. Here's one I kind of did ahead of time, just to give you an idea. These pieces here stack together, so you kind of have to glue them all, and it'll be the top part of the window. So they all just kind of mesh together, and you can see that little rectangular flat stick thing I just bumped there with my finger. That is a piece that will be used as a guideline where that slot is, just like I'm doing right there, just to line up to make sure you have everything straight, because you don't want to try to stack these pieces and then they're all crooked. So I'll speed it up a little bit. I've got everything glued. I'm using Gorilla Glue wood glue, and it dries fairly quickly, and it's quite strong. And off to the left, you can see a little cap I put some of the glue in, and that's where I'm using my toothpick. And I find that's handy to spread the glue onto certain things as well. So once it's lined up, you can clean up the glue and then pop that little piece out, because it doesn't need to stay there. It's just, again, for aligning. And that's going to be the top part of the window. And we'll come back to that later, because I am going to go over painting, how I painted them all and decorated them. So we're going to put that aside. Now we're going to work on the ribbing. I call it ribbing just because these windows kind of remind me of a rib cage. So the pieces are very delicate. So I'm going to start with the center one. And again, don't be too forceful with them, because they will crack or split. So I'll start in the center just to kind of get a base, a home base, and just continue putting glue in all the tiny little spots and move down the stick with the different arch, or ribs, I should say, because it reminds me of a rib cage. So again, I will speed this all up. So now you see why I find it easier just to start in the middle. And you work your way out. I keep going back to the one I did previously just to kind of reference exactly what I'm doing. Once that seems to be fairly dry, I'm going to flip it over and start putting more of the longer pieces along. And there we go. Speed it up again. And that's what it looks like. And again, I can't stress enough, don't force something. It'll fit, just have to slowly kind of wiggle it in. If you push too hard, it will snap. Clean up the excess glue. Again, I'm being a little more fussy maybe than some may want to, but I just prefer to have it a little cleaner instead of having lumps of glue later on that's dry and then you have a hard time scraping it off. Now I'm looking at the little pieces that are going to go along the bottom. And whenever you're looking at these things, just kind of think, how do they go together and where they connect, and that's where you want to put the glue. Again, just kind of try to wiggle it on. It'll work its way on. And there we go. It kind of snaps in. Press it down. And that is the bottom part of the window. So like a ledge, you can put stuff in it. I did. I'll show you later. You don't have to, but. And now we'll do the top. They're pretty much the same thing. So there we go. Finish it. Now these little pieces, they go along the bottom, and there's tiny little sticks that again will go into the spots that are cut out, and it'll form a little piece on the bottom that light shines through quite nicely when you put the lights on. This specific unit that I bought, the Harry Potter book Nook, you can order blue lighting or white lighting. And I ordered blue, like the first one I did, and there's a picture of it at the very end. I did one just before I did this one, and I gave it as a gift to someone. And I liked that one because that one was more of like Diagon Alley. This one, I ordered the blue lighting, but when I got it, I decided I wanted white, and I did have like a longer strand of white battery-powered tiny lights, of my own, so that's what I ended up using for this, and you'll see that in the end. But they shine through this bottom piece quite nicely onto the ground. They kind of reflect nicely under the ground. So there's the tiny little pieces. Again, these are very delicate little pieces. I'm going to line them up. Oh, I'm going to put the top on first. So this is the very top piece. I put a good amount of glue just because it was a heavier piece. I wanted to make sure it stays on. But you also have to be careful when you're gluing things not to go too close to the edges, because when you squish it down, then that's when the glue kind of smooshes out. And then you'll have to do extra cleanup. So you have to be aware when you're gluing things together, especially the little pieces. And I'm going to use this again just to line up. Where you're putting glue on, and once you put pressure, what's going to happen with the glue? Is it going to squish out through the edges? You just want to have it a little cleaner looking, so be careful when you're putting glue on things. I'm going to hold it there for a little wee bit, make sure it's aligned. And again, if you don't use this little piece of wood and you kind of just stick stuff randomly together, then it may kind of have like a crooked look at the top. So that's why I use it, just so it has a clean look, clean, straight look. All right, so now we're going to work on these little wee pieces. And these do take a bit of time because they're very delicate and it's a bit tedious, and it might look a little crooked at first when you start putting them in, but it will line itself up, because as you put the sticks into the spots that they slide into, it'll straighten itself. It'll straighten itself out. Once I get the first one in, again, I just go with the center one. It seems like the most logical spot to start. And then work my way out. From there, I'll speed it up a little bit as well, so that it's, because you get the picture. You don't have to watch the whole thing slowly. There we go. So I'll put them all in. And there we go. So that, again, I'm just trying to make sure everything's straight. The pieces are in properly. You want to make sure they're not sticking out at the bottom, the sticks, little sticks. You want to make sure they're flat with the bottom piece. And there's our two little rib cage type style windows. Half circle windows. So now I'm going to go over it with black paint. Everywhere you think you've got it all, and then you see a little spot, and I'm very thorough with this, because once you start putting things together, it's hard to go back in later and paint some of the spots. They're hard to reach, so really look at it. And again, this doesn't have to be black. Maybe you want it green or purple or yellow, whatever your color, but I went more black with this one. And I painted over everything, even the spots that are black, just so it had an even, balanced, solid black color all the way through. Again, you have to be aware of where you're painting. Inside, the top little part of the roof of the inside of the window, the bottom piece, everything. Because like I said, at the moment, you may not think it's going to show, but it'll show at the worst possible moment. You've got stuff glued and you're like, oh my gosh, there's a little piece I should have painted, I missed it. So really pay attention before you assemble it onto the main wall. It's much easier to get it done before it's all assembled. So now I'm going to take this metallic gold paint, acrylic paint, and paint a couple lines at the top. And I'm going to do this with both windows. I have a series of paintbrushes, and it's nice to have a very fine one just to get these tiny little details. And I use the bigger one for when I was like gray washing the stone walls, and the smaller ones for the more detailed work. Always handy to have a little glass of water, some paper towels. you wipe your brush off. So this is just a plastic, thin plastic I'm going to use for my window. There was some thin frosted type plastic that came with it. I will use for some of them. For these, because I was putting some items inside of the window, I wanted the windows to be clear. So I just used a thin piece of plastic. Again, this comes with, you find this plastic with packaging, just general packaging of items that you may purchase. So again, be very careful with the glue. Don't go too heavy, because you have to remember when you press that plastic on, it's going to go smoosh. You don't want it all over the plastic. You may not want to put plastic on the window. You may just want to have it empty. It's totally up to you. I did have to hold this down for a little bit because it's a little bit thicker piece of plastic and I didn't want it popping out. So that's kind of the finished look. It's pretty cool. Alright. Now I'm going to put this door on. Now so again, this is very thin. Be careful with it. Glue it down. It's kind of like a door frame. Clean up all the excess glue. Again, with the toothpicks, very handy. Get into the tiny little spots. Now, I did not do this all in one sitting, this video, so, I would suggest, if you're going to be detailed like I am, to not do it, because you get tired after a while, and it does take a little bit of focus. So I spread it out over a few days. You may want to just start with all the walls, paint all the walls. Assemble some of the little pieces that go with the walls, keep it all in little divided parts and work on them individually. I'm not going to latch this in. Again, don't force something if it feels like it's not going in. Just give it time, wiggle it around a little bit. Press it down, make sure it's on there, and there we go. And I've already added some stuff to the first window. I made a little pen quill out of just a piece of beading and feather. Put a little dangly thing in the window and a little skull. Next, we're going to do a little door handle. Again, when you have that bag, tiny pieces, be careful. Tiny little things inside. You have to make sure you don't lose them or drop them on the floor, so just be careful when you're opening the package, because it's very tiny piece, this little door handle. And glue it on, paint it black, tidy it up. Yeah, it's nice. Now we're going to work on the little windows and the windowsills. So I already went ahead and painted the windows. This is just, this actually, is the little ledge that goes above the door frame. Slightly different shape than the window sills. Paint it black so it matches the door and the door frame. And it just pops right in. Now the little holes above it are for the sign holder. That's what that is right there, which I'm going to paint gold. gold. Now I'm just going to pop it in. Now I did forget to show you the step of how I made the sign. I did not do the wand sign that's sitting there, Ollivander's. I did a different one. But those little S's are the hooks that latch onto the sign and then onto the sign hanger, and you have to be very careful putting those through the holes on the sign because the wood is very thin where it is. And then those little arches by the S, they went on the sign as well, but at some point you'll see what the sign looks like. So now we're going to look at the windows here that I've already painted. Put in the windowsills first because the windows snap into the sill. Press it in. I'm going to go ahead, speed it up a bit. There we go. And now we're going to put our first window in. There we go. Just pops in. And we will put stuff behind the windows and the door later. Like I said, I used the foggy plastic for those instead of the clear. So that's what it looks like once I finished that step. Turned out pretty neat. And now you can see what I mean about texturing the bricks. So, Borgin and Burks. This piece of paper came with the kit. I do believe I paid extra for some of these little bits. It was a very nominal fee. And you can see I finished putting things in the second window, dinosaur egg, and some sparkly bits. And on top I put a black cat sitting on the top. And you can see I've hung the sign. I painted it silver and I used my black acrylic pen to highlight the wording on it just to make it a little stronger. Again, you have to readjust. Put the glue on. Don't put too much glue so it doesn't ooze out on the sides because it is just a strip of paper. And there's my sign. Let's see, I painted it silver and put black in with the wording just to make it pop out a bit more. Now I've gone ahead and again pre-washed the cobblestone with a light medium gray, and I'm going to texture again by painting two different tones on here. Oh no, sorry, I'm going to start with just filling in the black here. Just going to put a black just so that you can see that under the window, that's kind of where the light's going to shine, and I just didn't want to have it looking white. Again, you have to think of all these things because later on that would be very hard to paint once you put the thing on top of it, the window. Now we're going to work on the stones. And I did two kind of tones on top of the gray wash, a medium and then a light. Well, I guess more of a darker gray and a lighter gray, I should say. And again, you don't have to do every single stone in a row, kind of just do a random one here and there. I'll speed it up a bit. You can see I'm not doing every single one. And it might look weird at first, but you'll see in the end how it turns out. Mix a bit lighter, go in, fill up some of the other ones with just a tiny bit lighter color. Now you can see it's starting to come around. Give it a bit of texture, a bit of definition, I should say, more in texture. Just makes it stand out. Doesn't look so flat. Again, you don't have to go into all these details. You can do whatever you like, and you don't have to use gray. And that's what it looks like at the end. And I'm going to use kind of like a beige toned acrylic pen and fill in the cracks just to define the colors a little bit more, just to break them up a little bit more if they blended together too much. I felt like it made the stones pop. I did go and paint gold and black on that one spot where the other door goes, but in the end I changed it because I didn't like it. And you speed it up a bit. And as I'm going along, you can see how it does make the stones stand out a little bit more. Give them a bit more definition. And again, you don't have to go this detailed. I enjoyed doing it and I took my time, so. And you can get these pens on Amazon. There was many different kinds. This had a good rating. The Tool Art had a good rating, so I used it. So here, this is where I said I changed my mind. I cut a little piece of burlap again. I wanted maybe just to add a bit more texture to it, give it more of a dimensional look. So I cut a piece of burlap for the mat and I glued it down. You have to be careful if you do something like this to not cover the holes, because that's where the wall is going to go. And you could make any kind of rug, outdoor rug, with whatever type of fabric, or you can just paint it. But I thought it had a cool look to it. Now we're going to start another wall. Going to do the same thing with the bricks. Give it a bit of a 2-tone, 3-tone look. Fast forward through. There we go. Now I'm going to paint the back, like behind where the door is going to go black, because you will see this. It will show through. So again, I'm going to go ahead and, just to be safe, paint it all in. Again, you can use whatever colors you want. Now there's a couple lines on the bottom part of the door, so again I grab my acrylic pen. I'm going to use gold. And I'm just going to trace in the lines there just to do a bit of a highlight, just to break up the black. Go in with the black pen and give it a bit more of a fine line through it. Finish the black behind the door. Well, it was in front of the door, I should say. And yeah, some of it gets a little tedious. Took me a little bit of time because the lines were so narrow. I did not want to mess it up and go over it. Do a touch up with the gold, and we're done. Here are some more pieces that go with this wall. I'm going to just do like a gray wash over, this is going to be the roof over the door. Again, I'm just going to wash it over quickly. I'm not going to be too fussy because I don't mind a bit of variation in the tone, just to give it a weathered look. So I'm not going to be too picky, just going to do a quick wash over it. And it'll dry a little lighter. And this again is a windowsill. And you can see the little door handle there. And those two narrow pieces on to the left are what go along each side of the door. So we're going to paint those. Again, you can do those, and I've seen this book nook done in different bright colors. Those were done in like green or yellow. People can paint them whatever they like. It gives it a different look. I just preferred to go darker with it. Now we're going to go ahead and start attaching. I'll start with the windowsill. And I will be using like a plastic coating behind these as well to make it look like glass behind the windows and doors. Now we're going to attach these to the sides. The wide side goes to the top part of the door to hold the roof. And I do recommend like a Gorilla Glue, wood glue. I find it's the best out there for crafting. It's going to pop on like that. I'm going to put a bit of glue in place. I forgot to paint this. Again, details. So I'm going to paint it black. Oh, sorry, gray. I'm going to paint it gray. Speed it up a bit. Put some glue on. And I put glue on the back part too so it stays on the wall. You got to be careful. You don't want to smear the glue everywhere. Pop it on. There we have it. Now we have to put the door frame in. Now I did find it easier to put the door frame in after the sides and top were put on, just so that it goes in exactly where it's supposed to. If you put it in first, you don't put it in the exact same spot, the sides may not line up properly to the door. So I did put it in after. And it does take a bit of aligning. You want to look when you're putting it in. You want to make sure it matches the bottom door. I took my time putting glue on because it's quite narrow. And you do want every piece of it to stick. So I'm going to take a little bit of time with this. Sorry about that. I should have sped this part up, but it's already in my video now. So okay, so now let's go ahead and apply that. And again, just try to ease it in and line it up exactly where you need it to go. To bring it down just a bit. Want to make sure that it lines up at the bottom of the door a bit better. Go. And we got to clean up the glue. Alright, so I clean the glue up, and then I'm going to just touch it up a little bit with some paint. It's all good, happy with that. Good. Now we're going to start another panel. I've gone ahead and painted the bricks. And we're going to put in the windowsill. We've done enough of these now that those are pretty easy. Now we're going to start to build this window. It's a slanted window. So these side pieces that I've painted already, again, the top part of the piece is wider. Just pay attention when you're looking at the instructions. Which end is up, which end is down. Since the window tilts forward, the wider piece goes at the top, and that will just click in place. Once you have your glue applied, gently put it into place. press it down. Again, this will have a little top part just right here. There is no holes or spots that it slides into, it just sits, so you have to make sure you put the glue in the proper spot and then line it up. Gotta look and see if you can have it centered. And there we go. Next panel. And this is the kind of frosted thinner plastic that came with it. It's almost like you put sheets of paper in, paper divider. And so it came with the package. And apply this, and then after I put a bit of tape on the top and bottom as well. So that's what it looks like. It's kind of frosted. This is the bricks that go around the window. Again, there's nothing it clicks into, so it's just a matter of glue and lining it up. But I'm going to first paint just delicately because I did put the plastic behind it. Again, this is where you have to kind of think ahead of time. Paint those dark so that they're not standing out, you know, away from the theming that I have. Put the glue on, line it up, and again, be careful when you're applying anything onto these panels that are near where the edges are, where you're going to the panels lock together, because you don't want to be covering up the spots they click together, so make sure nothing overlaps over it. There we go. So that would be all of the panels now we worked on. The walls, I should say. Interior walls. Here I went and cut a piece of that frosted plastic and placed it inside. And I did put a bit of glue, but now I'm going to use my hot glue gun and just kind of run a thin line along the top and bottom just to make sure it stays in place. Now, I have seen on some other people's designs that they just placed it flat on the back, but I prefer to have it upright against the window. It just takes a bit more time and patience. That's what those look like put together. Well, I'm just holding them, and I did change that leaky cauldron sign later. I didn't like the purple, and I wanted the wording to stand out, so I actually printed a piece off the internet and made my own sign. Now you can put on some of the fun additions, like the wanted posters. Again, you got to think of placement. You don't want to put it up too high because you have to think of how high a person would be standing up against the wall to be reading it. So don't put it way up high by the window. I just think these are really fun additions to the piece. They really make it. Now I'm going to start laying everything out, and to me this was the trickiest part, is trying to get them to fit onto the base and then fit together. It was the hardest part I found of building it. You have to be very patient and kind of put them in slightly on an angle into the holes into the base, and then trying to wiggle the sides together so they latch. So get all the glue into place, and it took me a few shots, wiggling, putting more glue, and then finally I got it to where I thought it would work the best. Now, if you're putting lighting behind it, they don't go they latch together, but it's not a tight latch, so that you can see through them a bit. So I ran some dark material and glued it along the back side of where they join so that the light doesn't shine through them as much. But here are my little pieces I put in. The newspapers crumpled up, the broom. These are the back pieces, and on the other sides of these are the brick walls that are on the outside of the box. I painted them different colors and just kind of random textures because it's what you see behind the window, and instead of having a solid color, so those blotches are where the windows are. Instead of having a solid color, I just threw that behind, and it is frosted color, so you won't see it super clearly, but I just wanted to have a bit of texture. Here's where my lights are. I used felt to glue, not the glue touching the wiring, just to hold the felt on, to hold the lights in place. Again, you have to be careful where you put the lights, because I didn't want the lights to shine straight through the window. I wanted them to glow along the sides. There I cut a silhouette out I found on the internet of Harry and Hermione. And then I put some pieces of cardboard behind just to hold them up firmly. So here I'm going to put my walls up. Again, this took a little bit of time. It's not hard. You know where they go. It's very obvious where they go. It's just a matter of getting the glue in. They came with two tops. For the top piece of there is an open piece and a solid piece. I chose the open piece so more light shone through, but there is one that you can use that's like a solid piece. But I didn't put that one on yet because now we have to put these things into place. Pops through the back, and then the back piece slides between the inner panel and the outer panel. So I just painted, really only need to paint the front piece where there's a little thing that slides on the front. So I'm going to speed this up a bit, pop it in. A bit of glue in. So again, the biggest piece goes on the back side of the front panel, and that slides in between the inner and outer wall. I'm going to line it up. Again, it's not hard, it just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of patience. Press it all together, hold it in place, let the glue set. Now we're going to put these little pieces on the front. I'm going to paint them, and then they pop on the little knob that's sticking out, that sticks in from behind. Now, oddly enough, they don't go flush to the wall, but they do click on. Now I'm going to paint the pieces where the panel is going to fit. I did paint the underside of that black, so when you're looking at it, you don't see bright color. And I will paint the top part as well. I have the light come through the back. There's a little hole. So there's my little mat and a broom. I made some little books. There's my leaky cauldron sign that I ended up making, and the silhouette of Harry and Hermione. My little kitty cat. This is the book nook I made before. The very first one I made. So if you're new to this channel, click the subscribe button. And if you like this video, hit the like button. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments or questions, leave them below. And bye for now.